welcome to another O the Anthem podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody.
That's Robert, and over here to my right...
Hi, I'm Bill.
Bill is my dad.
Cory's dad.
Yeah. I'm just going to call him Dad for the rest of the episode.
That's fine.
Because that's basically how I have to do it.
Yeah, well, I don't think you ever get past that point. I will never, ever call my parents by their first name. I don't know. Just can't.
I never did.
Yeah. I don't... It's a weird... It's a weird line, I guess. You only ever want to say it like when you're instructing people, like your lineage, basically.
Right.
Like on a form, it's like, you know, father's name. Like you can't just write Dad Baker.
Right.
You have to be. That's when you know. Oh, William Baker comes into play. But you know, the anytime other than that, it's just Dad or father or whatever the case may be. But
and I mean, despite the fact that I suppose we are cohorts of types now, I still have a difficulty not calling you Mr. Baker. Like we're 16 riding bikes in the neighborhood, so.
Yeah, please call me Bill.
I attempt to. I do attempt to. As much as possible. So. All right, so Cory, how was your week?
Call me Bill. Cory, you call me Sir.
Well, until you get yourself a legitimate job,
yeah,
that's going to be how it is.
Your eminence would be
once you get yourself a postgraduate degree, why don't you come back and talk to me then?
That's the only reason I would call him by his first name.
Yeah.
All right, so how was your week, sir?
It was good. There was I went to a graduation party yesterday. Mm-hmm. Played soccer out in a dirt path, which was nice. I felt like someone from Nicaragua.
Yeah, football, as if the Nicaraguans were playing.
Yeah, exactly. But it was good. I had a good week.
Yeah,
fun time. We beat the Yankees pretty soundly, so I'm always happy about that.
Yeah. Well, and
I was kind of surprised you didn't catch a game because where were you this week?
I was in New York. Well, for this weekend, I was up in New York for a wedding. And what people don't understand, and I feel like you should because you were there for a while, is that I was in Brooklyn. In the Dumbo, Williamsburg area, Park Slope area, which is still a very big area.
Hipsterville?
I was in Hipsterville, that's right. And the Yankees play in the Bronx, which is a solid hour-and-a-half train ride at best from where I was.
Wow. Yeah, but you see a lot of characters on the train. Which makes it worth the trip, I feel like, at least. I was there I did go to Coney Island for the first time, which was great. I was there for 6 years, never went to Coney Island. And I went twice, and that's where I got this lovely sunburn I'm sporting. I don't think I've ever been to Coney Island. Have you been to Coney Island?
No, I've never been to Coney Island.
It's an experience you should go. We were there for the Mermaid Parade, which is...
Oh, well, if I knew the Mermaid Parade was there, I would certainly gone to see that. Were they real mermaids or just imitation?
Women dressed up as mermaids.
Oh.
And it reinforced the rule that I have always believed in, which is the women who should be nude in public never are, and the ones who should not often are.
Often are, yeah.
Well, I will tell you that there's a mermaid group in Baltimore, the Charm City Tales, which I had no idea about, but they were in the parade.
Oh.
And now
they made the trip up?
Yeah, I'm friends with a bunch of them on Instagram now because they saw my picture.
So, oh, cool.
Yeah,
there we go.
Where did they see your picture?
Oh, I uploaded it on Instagram, and I put hashtag Charm City Tales, and you can search for hashtags. So they searched for their own thing, saw my post.
Oh,
social media.
I guess where I'm missing the boat is I don't know what the Instagram is.
Oh, Instagram is like Facebook, but it's based on pictures rather than posts.
It's just all pictures.
All pictures.
Oh, and the Orioles beat the Yankees ace too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Masahiro Tanaka.
We scored 8 runs.
But not all against him.
Yeah,
but
well,
still, he got homered off of by Jonathan Scope. So twice this season he's been homered by Scope. So
Jonathan Scope.
I
don't know him.
He's new this year.
Oh, okay.
So
we got to get you out to a game.
We do.
Yeah, because we're almost at the All-Star break now, and you haven't been.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah.
Come on now. But so
I've been to a game.
What's that?
I've been to 2 games, I think.
But just not with me. I mean.
Oh no! Well, that's why.
He's been avoiding the ones you're at.
Which we have one tonight. Very excited about that. Anyway, so I went to the wedding for my friend Bobby and Nick, and they were. It was a fantastic ceremony, and it was beautiful there at the loft, which was great. And I realized upon my first evening in New York that I miss it and I need to move back or move to a big city of some sort. Baltimore, LA, New York.
The thing about New York, and I know we're already way off topic, is that I think everyone gets that, like, I'm spending the weekend in New York and, like, man, this would be great to live here.
Yeah.
and like all that. It feels so good. And then once you spend more than like a week there, you're pretty much done with it, unless you're one of those people who just like needs that in your life. You know?
Well, I mean, if it would be a nice place to live if you had a really good apartment or condo or house.
Oh yeah.
And you had plenty of money. I mean, if you had a condo overlooking the park or something,
right,
Central Park, that could be nice. And you had plenty of money and could take taxis everywhere and go to some of the great restaurants, catch plays.
So if you're like one of Donald Trump's kids.
Well, no.
Right.
Yeah. I have to say, though, that you know, based on how much I spent this weekend, I actually, with my job now, make enough to probably live in New York. Now, not to pay the rent, because I would assume that I would make proportionally more.
Would you be a street person?
Well,
you have to get that student loan taken care of first, I think, before.
Well, no, because my assumption is
that's right. Obama's going to pay for it.
Oh God, I hope so. So, like, I assume that I would probably make about 50% more in the same job, just because the cost of living is higher. Mm-hmm. And if that was the case, then I could afford to live there and take taxis everywhere. And I already eat out basically 7 days a week, so it would just be, instead of Royal Farms 6 days a week, and let's throw in a McDonald's for some variety.
It would be bodegas.
Oh yeah, Vietnamese food. I went to like a Chinese bakery and got a pork roll that was so good. Oh, anyway. But no, I miss it. I just miss being in the city. That's the thing. I miss having civilization around me and things to do, which Baltimore will satisfy, LA will satisfy, New York would, so all the same thing.
I think the only difference with LA is that, like, you have to, like, travel so much in LA to get to those it's such a sprawling area. Like, New York is so compact. You talk about an hour and a half to get from one point of the city to the other.
Yeah.
An hour and a half could get you 2 miles in LA, and you have to drive it and be stuck in traffic. So
right. Yeah. So it's not exactly the same.
How about San Francisco?
Now, and I love the idea of San Francisco, but if I'm going to California, I want the Southern California temperature. Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, like, San Francisco's great. I've never been there, but I hear that it's basically like spring all year long.
Yeah.
I'm not so much a fan of that. I want summer all year round.
Oh, you want hot?
I want like 70s and 80s, not 60s.
And it's just as expensive as New York these days.
Oh, yeah.
Like, San Francisco has a lot.
It's number 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's outrageously expensive to live out there.
Very.
Especially in the city.
But again, the cost of living is very high, but then the wages that they pay somewhat compensate for that.
True,
like New York, they'll pay you more.
It's a bit of a company town, though, too, because you get like a lot of tech businesses there. Just like a lot of financial is in New York.
But a lot of Rob's leftist-leaning friends live there. I think he'd enjoy that.
Driving their Priuses and such. Is it Pri when you're talking about multiples?
No, I think it's
Priuses.
So one other thing before we get down into it, I want to do a Lulu check-in. Have you checked into Lulu over the last week?
I have been sporadically looking, and a lot of people seem to be looking at me since we talked about it last week, but no more reviews.
So you're still at 8.6?
Yeah, still holding steady at an 8.6, which I think is a very respectable score considering that I've been off the market for 4 years.
It's respectable depending on how you want to define that. But, no, so I got both sides of that ridiculousness, which was I got a boost right after the episode posted where a couple of people like judged me and my rating went up on a couple of things.
Yeah.
And then I got that like bitter X. And I know it was I don't know which one of you it was, but I know it was one of you.
My dad does have a fake woman account on Facebook just to screw with people.
Yeah.
So, I was wondering why he was asking so many questions about Lulu.
Right. I think he's going on to do it. He's going to expand. Yeah. But no, so I dipped down, and I got like a lot of negative hashtags, and my score dipped down. But then now it's back up to the 8.2 that it was.
More women got on their meds and.
Well, I think that the people favorite you even if they don't judge you. So I think that some people had favorited me, and then when they saw all the negative remarks, felt the need to like come to my defense, which was part of my argument last week that it doesn't matter how bad the score is there because there's going to be some girl out there that's like, look at this horrible score. I bet this is all just bitter X's, and I'm going to go date him anyway.
Right.
So yeah, so I'm assuming that's what happened. So.
We told people to light you up too, though.
I know, and somebody did.
Somebody took the example.
I guess all the people that are listening to this are going to know what Lulu is.
Yeah.
Well, if they listen to last week's episode,
and how to get there and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's in your app store on your smartphone. If you do not have a smartphone, I don't know what to do with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you're honestly listening to a podcast.
I'll say even Bill. Bill's got a smartphone. He doesn't know how to unlock it, but he does have a smartphone. It
unlocks?
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Al, I'm going to adjust this. Can you do the theme song? We hit the theme song contest again before we get started, too?
Okay, yeah. Basically, the theme song contest is still rolling on. Rob has $150 in the fight for the winner, and I will shoot a music video for you, assuming that you do not want me to redo something horribly expensive. And yeah, it's coming up in 4 weeks.
How many entries are you expecting?
Are we expecting?
Yeah.
God, I don't know. I'd be happy with one, but I think there's a lot of people who are interested.
Yeah, I mean, I got some messages this week that were even just like, do you want a full song or just a verse? And I was like, yeah, that doesn't really matter to me, bro.
Let me say this.
Yeah.
If there are more than 5 entrants,
yes,
I'll kick in $50 too.
Oh, there we go.
Hey, there we go.
So if we have more than 5 entrants, $200 becomes the new grand prize. That'll buy you something really nice at Guitar Center.
Yeah.
For the purposes of...
Plus the video, plus, the rise of the record label.
Yeah, the Anthem Empire.
Yeah, there we go. You're in the ground floor.
And Cory does very nice videos.
Well,
that's worth something. It really is.
People seem to enjoy the promo that... why did I say promo? Like a French.
Promo?
Enjoyed the promo. Oh, God damn it. There we go again. Promo that we did this week for this episode.
Yeah, and as I said on Facebook, I think out of everything you've ever done, it was like the most epically shot, even though it wasn't all shot by you, promo. It was cut together perfectly, and it built the suspense right up to the end, and it was very nice, very well done.
It took all of 30 minutes to put together too, which I was excited about. I was able to.
We should submit that to Sundance. Is 30 minutes? Is that not
or Toronto. Toronto's looking.
Well, Toronto's too late, but Sundance, yeah.
We still do it to Sundance.
Just that promo alone.
Yeah, just that.
Just get a lot of just get them to listen to the podcast.
There you go. Just have all the judges. What is this? I don't even. I feel like we should listen now. It's nice. All right, so topic for this week, topic number 1 for this week out of the couple. We're going to be talking about primaries. We're going to be talking about a little bit about the Redskins, and then just have a little input from Mr. Baker over there. But starting out, primaries in Maryland. For those of you who live in Maryland, early voting ended last Thursday, and our primary is coming up on the 24th.
Which is the day that this podcast is released.
Exactly right. So
I hope you're listening to this on the way to your polling place.
And make sure you go. I mean, it's something we can't stress enough. Just vote. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care anything.
I care who you vote for.
Well, yeah. But get educated.
So do I.
Get educated. I don't care which party you vote for. I don't care which party you're a member of. I don't care who in that party you vote for. But if you make an educated vote, that's all I ask. Just be a participant, because Lord knows the 20% turnout that we're getting is getting us not some great politicians. So we need more turnout so I think more people will get involved.
I think people who aren't asking serious questions of candidates are why we're getting terrible candidates.
Well, yeah, I mean that's
we're picking people who are filling out sound bites rather than we're picking out people who, we have an actual trust and belief that we can lead, can lead us to a place.
I think it's a little more to it than that. The Democrats generally win in Maryland, any race.
Oh yeah,
not always, but generally. And so on the Democrats, you've got the establishment pick, who is Brown.
Right.
And Gansler got in it, and at least we have somebody. But that's about it. Nobody's really anxious to go against in the Democratic Party to go against
Debbie Mazur's in there too, and Aaron.
No, Mazur, yes.
Yeah, Aaron told me that she likes her haircut, and that's why she's voting for Mazur.
Oh dear
God! I saw her, and my reaction to her was, "Here is a Rachel Mad Cow impersonator."
Well, no, and here's what I'll say, though. Brown is definitely the establishment pick. Gansler should have bided his time, because I think he was within the establishment, and if he had done it when they wanted him to, apparently Brown was going to offer them the lieutenant governorship, which then leads him to be the next governor after Brown. Gansler didn't want to wait any longer. He thought that based on some of his attorney general releases this past 4 years that he had a chance, which, I mean, I think he did if Brown didn't come out so strongly and the party back him. But
see, no, hold on. Because this happened before, and I don't think this is going to be a Kennedy Townsend Ehrlich thing.
Oh, no.
But because, honestly, nobody on the Republican side is that strong.
I don't even know who's Hogan.
In the Democratic side, I think Brown has a real chance of actually being unseated here if one of the other two takes a dramatic fall. Like, if Gansler tonight gets drunk and hits somebody with his car, then Mazur might have a chance to, take over Brown's spot.
Well,
but that's because I feel like there's enough people who hate Brown, but they're splitting the other two between Gansler and Mazur.
Well, the latest poll, the St. Mary poll, people are just completely disinterested, and all three of them. And the same thing on all the Republicans.
Right.
It's no surprise that Brown has the lead. I think it was around 26% favorability, and I think that Larry Hogan was around 20% on the Republican side.
Right.
But most people were completely disinterested in the whole thing, and I think it's going to be a very low turnout. Now, there's something nice about that to the extent that if you want to vote, your vote, it's going to really count. If you go out there, because there are not going to be that many people perhaps voting against you. So,
well, and Cory, I do object to your ordering because Mazur a few weeks ago in a Baltimore Sun poll was the second favorite. I mean, she was. I wasn't
saying that Mazur isn't in that lead. I'm saying that
neither one of them is going to unseat
Brown.
Neither
one of them can unseat Brown unless one of the two of them take a fall.
Right.
Because basically what they're doing is hurting the anti-Anthony Brown vote.
Yeah, and neither one of them is going to drop.
That's the problem. You have enough people who are going to vote for Brown, but the anti-Brown vote could topple that. But there's two candidates who are splitting that vote.
I don't think they're splitting it. At least the St. Mary's poll showed Mazur in third place, down more than just a little bit. She was pretty, and I can tell you exactly what it is, except I can't read. Somehow my printer decided that. Can you read that?
Oh wow, yeah, it's a little small.
New poll confirms no one cares about race for Maryland governor.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a St. Mary's poll. Just came out.
Here.
It's in there. They had Brown at around 20-some%, and Gansler around 15%.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Anthony Brown, 27%, followed by Doug Gansler at 11%, and Heather Mazur at 8%.
Yeah.
But full 54% expressed no preference, which is more than half of the people in the state really, or at least Democrats in the state, don't really give a shit about who runs.
And
by the way, you can't curse on this podcast.
The problem is that you don't have the Republicans. They don't feel like they have much of a chance this year. Nobody's come forward. So who wants to run against Brown or the Democrat when there's such little chance of winning? You need somebody strong.
So last night, I spent a lot of time reading through positions from all the Republican candidates. Mm-hmm. Because I'm a registered Republican because I find it's the more interesting race to vote in Maryland. At least when it comes time for presidential election time.
Yeah, I'm registered Republican too.
You don't. Who wants to pick between Obama and Hillary in Maryland when you can vote, any one of the 7 people who should or should not be president on the other side?
Right.
That's a more competitive race.
I did it to vote for Ron Paul last time. So.
There we go.
Yeah.
But when I was looking through all the candidates on the Republican side, I think there was 4 that were listed there. It was pretty much the same exact answer for every single question.
Yeah.
Just worded a little differently. Mm-hmm. I mean, and with the Republican side at least, it seems like you're just making a value pick of who you think is the most competent. And, you're getting, no matter who wins, you're getting the same issues. It's just a matter of I believe that Hogan can do the job better than, Wallard or whatever. Pick your candidate. But it's just.
I mean, the support that Brown has among the general voting population is very weak. It could change very quickly. He's going to have a hardcore vote because of the establishment. The unions will go out and minorities will go vote for him, and he's got those votes. But other than that, teachers he'll have. But other than that, I think his popularity among the remaining voters is very weak.
Yeah, I mean...
So if you had somebody that came on... I mean, if Ehrlich, for example, was running on the Republican side, I think he would beat him.
And I agree, and I think that's what happened to Kennedy Townsend, right? She ran against Ehrlich.
She ran against Ehrlich.
Ehrlich poked out, and he was a good candidate, and the Democrats were like, well, we don't really like this Democrat, but I like this guy no matter what party he is, so I'm going to vote for him.
What was good about Ehrlich, at least, specifically for this state, is he wasn't a hard-line Republican.
Right.
He's never been like a complete like party guy. He's just very, he's certainly a Republican, but he's, I don't want to call it soft on some issue. Like he leans more to the middle on some issues that make him more
the social issues,
more equal. That Democrats feel like they can go across the table and vote for him because he's an understanding Republican. Like he's one of the ones who gets it, kind of thing.
Well, I think people generally like him.
Yeah, people seem to like him. But then, as soon as he got elected, he got hammered hard because nobody in the overwhelmingly Democratic state house wanted to give in. Basically,
well, this is one of the frustrating things. I mean, we're not voting for a president this time, but we are voting for all the congressional seats again and a third of the senators. Although Maryland doesn't have a senator up this time, but we will next time. But it's that we vote in these elections as if they're independent. Like we're voting,
right.
We vote for a governor this year, and we don't think about we need to put a Senate and a House of Delegates that's going to support him. Like I'm going to keep voting for the same guy I've always voted for in the House of Delegates, and expect that for some reason they're going to now work with a Republican governor, or they're going to.
Okay, so here's one of them. I was oh God, what was I can't remember the race right now, but it was one of the county council races or something like that. I was looking up all the candidates who are running, and one of them, probably better that I don't know his name, so I can't bury him on the podcast because he's already got enough going for him. But I was reading his issues page, which looked like it was his website was like from GeoCities or something like that. Like that's how poorly designed his webpage was. But it was like, what's the number one problem with that Maryland is facing? And he had something about nobody has a respect for God anymore, and I hope that sometime during my reign in city council that God will come down and sort through the sinners and the non-sinners.
Oh God!
I'm just like, oh my God, you put this on your website?
Yeah.
Wow, you really are just throwing money into the wind.
Delegate Smeagol. I mean, we went through his whole thing one of the last episodes. So.
Oh my God! Sometimes I feel like, but honestly, somebody like that, even if you think that he's kind of too far gone, too crazy, on the issue of God coming down and sorting us out judgment style.
It's just wishful thinking.
Well, I think he's just hoping for the best.
Yeah.
I think he's pretty tired of the way things are going.
I'd be happy to point out the ones that
How is he assuming that he's on God's side in that, he's going to come down into judgment and be like, okay, God, those folks over there. That's automatically the way that's going to go.
Where's county council representative?
I need to find him to help me.
Sam Smith, where is he?
What jurisdiction is this guy from?
He was in one of the races that I'm voting for tomorrow.
So Baltimore County?
Yeah, Baltimore County, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
District 5 or whatever.
Is he not an incumbent or non-incumbent?
Non-incumbent.
Okay.
It's on the Republican side. I don't know. Just do your research. I think it's District 5 because obviously I didn't. But
yes. Well, and I'll say this is why
go through all the campaign pages you find for people running for anything in Maryland, and the one that looks like it was designed by a 12-year-old in 1993, that's the person I'm talking about. He'll have a lot of things about how God is out to get us and stuff like that. So.
Well, and despite my socialist, communist, democratic leanings, I'm registered Republican just for the local races. Because if I stayed registered Democrat, I wouldn't get to vote for anything where I live. Because I guess is it kind of close here in Baltimore County between the Republicans and the Democrats? Is it a good race, or is it?
No, it depends on where you live.
You're just picking the person who's going to run against the incumbent who's going to win in November. Is that basically how it works?
More or less. I mean, I feel like Baltimore County has a weird. They even gerrymander the council seats though. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Because okay, so here's something I was explaining gerrymandering to Aaron last night. If anybody anyone who's not in Maryland or hasn't looked at how the congressional thing is laid out, District 1, which covers both of these two people, not me. I'm under the reign of the Right Honorable Dutch Rupersberger.
And no one has ever said the Right Honorable with so much disdain.
I was hoping the sarcasm was picked up.
Yeah, no, it was apparent.
But these two are both represented in District 1 by...
the Right Honorable Andrew Harris.
I can't even say anything good about Andy Harris.
Yeah, no,
neither. Have you ever said the story about what happened?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you have said that. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I told everybody what a douchebag he is.
Yeah, we berated Andy Harris.
But he, so this is the reason why District 1 is one of 2 Republican seats in Congress.
Only one.
Is it the only one?
Yeah,
I thought Western Maryland had that.
6 was now gerrymandered out, so that it'll be a Democratic district, and 1 will remain the only Republican. So.
Ridiculous. But Congressional District 1 is the entire Eastern Shore, basically, except for a little tiny weird smattering. No, there's somewhere there in the Western Shore that's just a smidge.
On the Eastern Shore?
On the Eastern Shore, on the western side.
Because we can't split it by a body of water. It's the entire Eastern Shore, and a little bit of Cecil County isn't.
That's it. That's the one.
It's still on the Western Shore,
but when it goes up and around, I've literally gone down to the map because I was trying to figure out which representative I was now after the gerrymandering happened.
Yeah.
And it literally goes down our street.
Really?
Yeah. It goes around, it cuts up randomly throughout the Timonium area, and then just snakes up our street and then back out and around. That's how specific. I think they picked you out specifically.
Yeah.
Let's get.
Some 22-year-old kid was looking for Republican voters and picked your house out, and probably a couple of your neighbors, and just said, "We want these.
We want these troublemakers to go on the Eastern Shore
into District 1." Yeah.
Well, how did they know what my votes are?
Because it's all publicly available information.
Is it? Who I voted for?
No, you can see what you're registered as.
And
independent.
And how you.
Oh, there you go. So Dad's not even voting tomorrow.
How you voted in the last 6 elections. It's all available. There's a program called MD Van that the Democrats use that has all of your voter information by address.
Oh.
It doesn't have the name. It just has the. Yeah.
They wouldn't know it's you, but they will know that the person who lived at this address is registered independent and voted this way in the last 6 elections.
So my votes for Renee Magritte over the years is recorded somewhere.
Yes. Although no one would know that that's your vote except for now, out to our hundreds of listeners.
How many times have you voted for Salvador Dali and stuff like that? And
a lot of times. A lot of times.
That's the one part of it, voting advice that my father gave me that I feel like I've held the strongest in my heart over all these years is if you don't find a candidate you like, just write in somebody you admire. And multiple times he's written in Salvador Dali and
Renee
Magritte, and you know what I think when it comes time for the congressional, once Andy Harris tramples whoever he's running against this year.
John LaFurlow. Oh, you mean the Democrat?
No, the Republican and then the Democrat.
Yeah. So
whichever. I'm just going to. I probably won't. I'll have to vote for the Democrat, I guess, just to get him out. But if I'm so anxious about it, I'll just write in Detective Frank Drebin and be done with it.
I would love to look at the that's why I love to see the raw voting data when they actually have everybody who's been written in.
Yeah.
Because now that you use the computers, you get the type screen, and it's not just we couldn't understand it. It's Donald Duck actually ran for office.
Have you ever seen the actual when they report those results?
Oh yeah, no, I love
2 months after the election is over, and they go through all the people who are written in. Jesus Christ has carried more votes than some independent candidate.
Yeah. But no,
it reminds me of the line from 30 Rock, where Kenneth says to Jack, he goes, "Oh, I think voting's a sin. I just write Jesus in all the places." He's like, "Those are Republican votes. We count them as Republicans."
Yeah.
I think this year I'm going to vote for the Turtle Man.
Turtle Man.
You know what Turtle Man is?
No, I like the sound of it.
I'm not turtle enough for the turtle.
Oh, all right. Well, he's on Animal Planet.
Oh, okay. So everybody,
you have to check it out sometime.
You've shown me that. I remember that.
Everyone vote for the Turtle Man.
Everyone vote for the Turtle Man.
Unfortunately, if he gets elected, he doesn't actually live in the district.
He lives in Kentucky. That's the
all right.
problem
So everybody here who's listening to us in Kentucky,
vote for the Turtle Man.
I think your name is John. Vote for the Turtle Man.
Yes.
Write them in your local election.
But no, so I keep my party Republican just so I can vote in the local races. Because if I stay a Democrat, none of my votes are going to count. And the Republican race is the race in our local county races.
Right.
So I have to keep it as a Republican just so I have a say in who's on the county council. And in the end, the one or two races where there is a Democratic challenger, I could still choose to vote for them in the general election if I chose to. But if there's only one running, what's the point of me voting in a primary?
Yeah.
Other than the governor, I don't think that there was any real contested races otherwise. Where there was 4 seats and there was 5 candidates.
Yeah, I mean, I always hate that. Like when you get your ballot in and it says like, pick one of 2. Yeah. Or pick,
pick only one.
The judges races here, and it's like pick 5 names, and there's 5 names there. You're like, well, shit. I guess I'm just voting for all 5 of these judges.
Yeah, well, a lot of lawyers don't want to run against a sitting judge.
Right.
Because if they don't win,
then
they may have cases before that judge. Not that the judge would hold it against them.
Of course not. No, absolutely not.
Well, no, judges are people who have no judgment against individuals. It's just all about the books. It's all the law. They never hold any kind of prejudice against actual people.
No, they're appointing a judge in Talbot County this year, and they're talking about that there are a couple people who are retiring from the practice, so that this judge may actually get challenged because the people who want to be judge don't have to worry about being practicing in front of them anymore. So you can challenge them in the next election and not worry about. If I did that, I got 30 more years to practice in front of that. 15 to practice in front of that judge. I'm never going to challenge them because if you lose, forget about it. That whole county is out because we only have the one judge per county. So, yeah. But no, so now that it's going to be this whole to-do, I'm sure, where people will challenge the appointment just because because they don't have to worry about it. So,
but moving on from local judges, because I know everyone tuned into the podcast to hear that part.
Yeah.
But this whole Eric Cantor thing, dude.
Yeah.
Cantor, not cancer.
No, I said Cantor.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not a judge. I'm not prejudicial against him. I'm just sort of saying. I find it interesting because everyone's doing in all the coverage the Monday morning quarterbacking of the whole situation. It seemed like people didn't really like him that much.
That's true.
Which came as kind of a if you asked anybody before the election, they would have said like, "Oh, he's going to breeze through this primary with no problem."
Well,
and then he gets unseated.
Because he was a big name, but he wasn't popular with the people back home,
right?
And he wasn't particularly popular in the House either.
No,
a lot of people said, "Good riddance."
The thing I love about our system is no matter how much power and influence you've built up in Washington, you got to go home and run in your district. And he showed that no matter how much power he built up in D.C., even though he wasn't really that well liked, mainly because he was a good whip. He was in the whip's office before, and he would go to people and be like, if you want to get reelected next time, you better vote this way. Otherwise, I'm going to make sure that no money comes out your way. So that's why people didn't like him. He was a good whip, and he got the votes together. But then when he went to the majority leader's office, you find out that you still need there are 660,000 people in Virginia that choose whether or not you get to keep that job, and you can't ignore them for 2 years and then go back and pretend like there's not a race when there is one.
Yeah.
But the overarching thing about Cantor's loss only says this: the Republican Party is going to move to the right, and it's going to cripple government for the next 2 years. What was that?
I don't know.
It was a beep.
Yeah.
It was a beep.
Oh.
Hold on a second.
Are we taking a live
call? How can we take a live call when it's not being broadcast?
I plugged in.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. We're live. We are live.
Yeah. Was that Aaron calling in?
Yeah, for whatever reason, because my phone was plugged in to the thing. I guess it auto answered when she called in. That beep was it picking up automatically.
Wait,
so she got a little.
But what's going to happen is that the party is now going to be concerned about Tea Partiers on the right. And they're going to slide to the right, and it's going to cripple government for the next 2 years because they don't want to get challenged in their primaries in 2 years. So welcome to the next 2 years. We're going to get nothing done, even less than they're getting done now. And our government's going to be worthless.
Well, it depends on whether the Republicans keep the House and win the Senate.
That's true, too.
If that happens, then I think things can get done. If the Democrats win both House and Senate, then a lot of things, almost everything bad, will happen over 2 years.
Yeah.
And if it stays as it is, you're right. Then nothing will be happening.
And I gotta say, I am praying for Democrats in the Senate to take the Senate or keep the Senate, for the Republicans to keep the House, lock the whole government down for another 2 years, and let's look for some gunfire in the streets in the next 2 years. That's what I want. I want people to get so fed up with a government that doesn't work that they lose faith in the system completely, and that they go about other means to have change. Listen,
people are disgusted.
There are four boxes that we use to change our lives. We use the soap box, we use the jury box, we use the ballot box, and the ammo box. And we are at the third. We've tried the soap box, that's gotten nothing done. The jury box is no point in having even that in the list anymore. The ballot box, we've shown that no matter who we send there, they get nothing done. So there's only one left. And we just got to lock down the government. If we have another government shutdown and it lasts more than 6 weeks, I guarantee you there will be people in the streets demanding some sort of change.
Well, I think that, just to get off the point of radicalism here for a second.
And I'm not advocating, just so it's clear, I'm not advocating violent overthrow.
And I'd like to say for the record and for the NSA that I have no guns, and I don't intend to be involved in any armed revolt. But I hope a lot of other people do.
I'm not saying that I'm involved, and I'm certainly not saying that I support violent overthrow of the government, but what I am saying is I expect that it will happen because people will get... Listen, the open carry people are already open carrying through D.C. It's not much of a shift that when the police meet them somewhere that there's an exchange of gunfire. Kent State was, 40 years ago now?
Yeah.
And if the students at Kent State had been open carriers, it would not have been the story that we tell now. It would have been an exchange of fire between the National Guard and the students that led to bloodshed on both sides. And who was the guy that took Harper's Ferry right at the beginning of the Civil War? Or he tried to take... John Brown? John Brown, was that who it was?
Yeah.
The only thing that is missing from John Brown's story is that other people didn't hear about it until years later. Mm-hmm. In our world now, if there is some sort of violent exchange between any group and the government, whether it's police or National Guard or otherwise, everyone will know about it instantly, and that kind of momentum builds. And that's
it's part of the 24-hour news cycle.
Well, no, because the media won't cover it. The media will cover either some violent separatist who shot unarmed police or unprepared police, or depending on if it's the other network, it'll be the police violently met a group of people who responded in kind rather than it was an exchange. But Twitter will show it'll be Arab Spring, but here, where people will see everything that's actually going on.
Getting back to the point of
the political crisis
about politicians not listening to the people who vote for them.
Yeah.
This is not meant to be a anti-Tea Party thing, but
no.
I will say this, that when I was first getting understanding what politics was, it was probably while Clinton was president, and Newt Gingrich was on the opposite side, and those were the base rivals.
Yeah.
And at the time when I looked at it, I seemed to think to myself, man, you couldn't get two people who were further away from each other on opposite ends of the political spectrum than Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich. It felt it was a short life that I had lived so far, but I felt God, this country is getting so polarized if these are the two people who are at the top of the party charts. But since then, there's people who make Newt Gingrich look like,
moderate,
the biggest liberal you've ever seen in your life, who are hijacking a party so far to the right, and then people who make Clinton look like he's a gun-toting loon on the right side because there's so many people who've pushed it so far to the left.
Yep.
that the people who are talking the loudest are the people on each side of the spectrum so far out that we've never seen before, and everybody in the middle is just being shut out.
Well, like go ahead.
I just think it like, I'm somewhere in the middle. I pick and choose my issues because I really feel like I need to go with a total, I don't need to be every single, check every single box Republican, because I don't agree with everything that's being said there, and I don't agree with everything on the Democratic ticket, and I like to pick and choose my people based off of that. But now you just get people way on each side.
Well, two things. Number one, I believe in the principles of the Tea Party, which is less government, less taxes, more freedom. We want our constitutional rights stop impinging on them, stop taxing us to death, and stay out of our lives. That's basically the Tea Party principles.
Right.
And I think that's great. That's exactly how I feel. Now, that doesn't mean I embrace every Tea Party candidate, because some of them are crazy. But let me also mention about Cantor. I don't think that Cantor's loss can be summarized as a Tea Party victory. I think it's too early to say that. I think that it was more of people being fed up with Cantor and wanting him out, and there was a guy that was able to gather enough votes because of his positions that he got in. But it wasn't his position that got him; it was the dissatisfaction played a large part in his win.
And I guess that's more to the issue. Do you guys think that sort of they're the dissatisfaction with people who are in Congress and the Senate and like every branch of government basically is just going to turn over into a huge rollover of people representing, like, are we going to see the biggest overturn of sitting House members?
Absolutely not, because it's going to
because people have been pretty fed up with the job Congress has done, and if you look at all the opinion polls, everyone is saying like this is the lowest favorably rated Congress in the history of.
But it doesn't matter, because the last time that there was a big overturn like that was in '94 when Newt Gingrich brought in 24 Republicans in the House and shifted the majority back to the Republicans, and then in the very next election, that one and the one that followed, they shifted the Senate back to the Republicans as well. But at that time, in 2014 dollars, you could run for Congress for $70,000. In today's dollars, in today's race, you need $1.5 million in almost any race in the country to run for Congress. You get into a district that's really contested, like District 1 here in Maryland, and you're going to be spending upwards of $15 million to do it. Now, if you are a Republican, you get Republican money. If you're a Democrat, you get Democratic money. And you get the corporate money that goes to the party, or corporate money that goes to special interests that then comes to you. But if you're a Tea Partier or a Libertarian or any sort of those outliers, you don't have that.
See, and
you can't do it.
Well, let me mention this, that Cantor spent as much money on steak dinners than the other candidate had to spend totally.
Yeah. I mean,
he spent like $170,000 on steak dinners. That's taking people out for dinners,
glad handing and stuff like that.
Glad handing and stuff, and which was just about the higher amount of money that the other guy. So the money didn't play a factor in that race at all.
Yeah,
but I think
surprisingly,
that was because Cantor also didn't spend the money that he may have had access to. He did what a lot of incumbents do, which is I'm not even going to spend it in the primary. If he had done media blitzes, if he'd done the mailers, if he'd done all the signs, he may have ended up spending 50 times what the guy spent because he had it to spend, and then the other guy wouldn't have won. But he didn't give any respect to his primary candidate.
Well, that's true.
I'm seeing
he
that
felt
a lot
he couldn't lose.
Right, he thought he couldn't lose, and he learned otherwise.
Yeah.
But now, if we could take a time machine and go back, and someone could tell him, listen, you got to take this primary seriously, spend it if you got it, because otherwise you're not going to have a race to spend it in, and he drops $6 million in his primary campaign, we won't know who David Brat is. Mm-hmm. His name will never come into the public consciousness because people are sheep. And when you see ads on TV and ads on radio and you see the signs on the side of the road, when you walk into the booth, you vote for the guy that you know.
Well, and it's not only that, but I mean, like, how many times have you seen something that looked like a really reputable quote on, like, a campaign ad?
Right, yeah.
Like, the Baltimore Sun says, the Baltimore Sun says that Anthony Brown slaughtered a small child. Like, you'll see that, and you'll be like, by the way, not a real thing from the Baltimore Sun.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Don't sue us.
But they'll do that little trick where it's like, Anthony Brown, ...
Yeah.
Slaughtered a small child, ... November of last year, ... And then you'll be like, you take that as fact, and you're just like, oh my God, did you hear about what the Baltimore Sun said about Anthony Brown? It becomes part of, like, the public consciousness.
And exactly. If in Virginia that Cantor had taken the race seriously, you would have seen every 30-second break on radio or TV in that area would have had Eric Cantor bashing David Bratt about something. But he didn't take it seriously, and he didn't have the money. And he didn't even do that kind of advertising because he thought glad handing people at steak dinners was going to be enough. You work for this company, you get your employees to come out and vote for me, I'll be fine. Didn't respect the candidate.
It does bring up the interesting point that I haven't seen many signs for Andy Harris or Dutch Ruppersberger around here.
Yeah,
who are the incumbents in, like, this area?
Who's running against them? Name you one person who's not an incumbent running as a Republican. Because David Bratt put on a good campaign, and Cantor ignored it, didn't respect it. Now the other side of that equation is Andy Harris doesn't have. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody running against him, but he doesn't have anybody running against him.
None of us can say who it is.
Right. Whereas people in Virginia would have known who David Bratt was. We wouldn't hear, but the people in the district knew who he was.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was all about him, Cantor not respecting the race. Now here, you don't see it because there really is nobody to run against. Andy Harris knows that when he turns out his faithful, just like we were talking about Brown turning out his faithful, Harris turning out his faithful will be enough to win the race. That he doesn't really have a challenge or challenger. Where, like I said, and the difference being that in Virginia, you would have known who David Bratt was, and if you respect the race and you respect the guy running against you, he had a chance to win, but he didn't respect him. So it's
but maybe that's the thing we should be focusing on. Like, as much as we're saying, like, Cantor wasn't really liked, and, like, we're looking back on it and saying, like, oh, that's why he lost. If we watch the news, because we're releasing this podcast on Tuesday, if we watch the news tonight for primary election coverage, and we see that Andy Harris got upset, or Ruppersberger got upset, or anybody else who we think is, like, locked down in there, like, Cummings isn't going to leave that 6th district until somebody pries his dead body out of the seat. He's there for life.
And even then, he might win the election.
Yeah, he might win the next election. Dead Elijah Cummings versus whoever else they run against him.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, if we tune in on Tuesday night and see, Harris upset by whoever was running against him in the Republican primary,
you'll know you're drunk.
Well, no, but I'm saying, like, at what point do we say that people's dissatisfaction with the Congress that we have right now is, like, a real thing that's happening in voting booths across this country?
Well, here's what I'll say, though. I think in Cantor's race, he was the only one who was surprised that he lost. Everybody else thought that it was a horse race and he should be more involved. Now, we don't live in that district, so we didn't see it.
Right.
I would be shocked only because if I see Andy Harris wins, I'm like, who won? I don't even know who else is in the I'm registered Republican. I don't even know who else is in the race. But in that race, it was Cantor saying, I'm just going to ignore the guy and pretend he goes away. It wasn't as blindsided. He got blindsided, but the voters, obviously, most of the people didn't.
Right.
We would be blindsided. I would be shocked only because I'd be walking out there like, okay, now who is this guy who won and who voted for him? That's why I don't think it's, if there was strong candidates, it would be a different story. But not every district has a strong candidate. Bratt was apparently stronger than Cantor knew. There are a couple other. There's a runoff in Mississippi. There's a guy in Texas who actually lost his primary as well. So it looks like we have at least 2 going out where there'll be a new seat no matter what. There's a runoff in Mississippi. There's one in Iowa. There's a couple of races where they're saying that later primaries, this is a message to them. But the message is what I said earlier. Move to the right because the Republicans are being challenged by Tea Party candidates. So the guy who's an incumbent has to move to the right.
Yeah.
Moving to the right locks down government. How much do we need to be fed up? Well, the problem is that I'm fed up with my candidate, but there's nothing I can do about it. Because I can move to another district. I can vote against Andy Harris, but he's still going to win.
But no matter, I mean,
let me say this: moving to the left locks up government too. It's not just the right.
I'm not saying that. And listen, if Occupy was still around and that we are putting up Occupy candidates, I'd say the same thing about that. I'm like, stop shifting my party to the left. We need to keep, or maybe it's good if we had one on the left, we could push both the Republicans and the Democrats to the left and the right, and then we would have room in the middle for a third party, which is really what we need.
If I recall correctly, you know the Occupy.
I spent a large amount of time down at Occupy, and I left the movement because it was being taken over by anarchists and people who I don't think really wanted change. They were the jokers of the political world.
You remember correctly. Rob did spend a lot of time not showering.
I remember that. But it was hard to tell, though. I mean,
just my normal man stench is so good that you can't really tell when I haven't showered. But I mean, I went down to Occupy. I was there, and I left when I saw that it wasn't what I wanted.
Well, good for you.
And too many people didn't, and they stuck around to this anarchist nonsense.
It's an interesting thing though, because I mean, Occupy was on its base not a horrible idea.
Because, just like the Tea Party, you talk about Tea Party principles, but that's not what we hear from candidates. We don't hear those principles. We hear far right extremist stuff. When
my dad explains Tea Party candidates, like the basis sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
but it also sounds kind of like a libertarian.
Right, which is what it is.
Well,
let's keep government out of our lives.
I think it's very close to being a libertarian. It's hard to where to draw the line between a conservative Republican and a libertarian.
I feel like at this point it's Jesus Christ, because I mean, like a lot of the Tea Party candidates are like hijacking
religion.
Like Michelle.
Religion?
What's that?
Using religion is
I mean, the Tea Party seems to have now become it's the Jesus Party. It's extended away from.
Well. See, I mean, it's the same thing on the Democratic side, except that the unions and the teachers unions, vote heavily Democrat because they get a lot of money out of that.
There's so much corruption.
And
in the whole thing.
Absolutely. So, but the Democrats embrace that because they've got a solid base that they will vote for them. It's not a lot of scattered voters who may show up and may not show up, who may vote one way and not another. When the union people go, the union organizers make sure they get to the polls. The teachers union makes sure they get to the polls. They let them know that you have to vote for the Democrat. They're the ones that are give us money, not the Republicans who will shoot you. And so with the Republicans, the religious right, pretty much favor the Republicans, and so the Republicans would be dumb not to court and embrace that vote. And so you never know really how much a candidate is really truly a God-fearing candidate, or rather is appealing to a block of voters that he needs.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know.
Here's what I'll say. As far as when you say Tea Party principles, I'm with you for everything except for historically, and I live by Patrick Henry's mantra that we have but one light. We have but one light, but by which to light our path, and that's the light of history. And if we look back over the last 2 centuries, the times of greatest economic prosperity, meaning businesses all together, the economy growing, was when tax rates are the highest. And I think that there is nothing wrong with taxation. In fact, after World War II, when we were taxing people at about 90% for the top tax bracket, that was some of the time of greatest economic growth. Because trickle-down economics does it. I mean, we could have a whole separate thing about that, but otherwise,
we could indeed.
Other than the taxation, I'm with you. I keep for me, all the amendments to the Constitution are equal. That means I should have a right to free speech, and you shouldn't limit it. I have a right not to be searched, and you can't limit that either. I have a right to not testify against myself, and there's no way in which you can make me do that. And we're getting closer and closer to that too.
Yeah.
And I have the right to bear arms, and I read that very broadly to say that I have the right to own, possess any armament that I want. So I'm with you on that as far as that goes, but I don't think that that's where the party is. I think that that's where the Tea Party started, and it was very centrist. It was, with social issues, go do what you want. Marry who you want. It's none of our business.
That's right.
And, if it's your body, and so if you want to get an abortion, that's fine. Go do it. If you find somebody who's willing to do it, and they're willing to take your money to do it, very free market style. You can have anything done that you want. Now, I think just with everything, you can't take it to extremes, and there are limitations on everything. Sure. But the problem is that the Tea Party, was then taken over by the Koch brothers and all of these people who shifted it from the one side of the Republican Party, from the middle left, or the left side of the Republican Party, over to the right. And that means that you lost all the Democrats like me, who are on the right side of the Democratic Party, who were very much in support of the Tea Party. You lost them, because you went all the way to the other side of the Republican Party, to the far right. That's why we need a real third party. We need a central party that has these libertarian principles.
Bull Moose.
Well, the Bull Moose Party is a great example. Because, Teddy Roosevelt, in his infinite wisdom, took all of the great business acumen of the right, the fiscal responsibility, and the social liberalism, and said, this is where we are at.
Well, not only
in the middle.
Not only that, but, specifically at TR, he had the big stick diplomacy.
Right.
Like, I do not need to get involved in every single conflict, because if this gets too far, then the U.S. eventually will get involved, and we're not going to be dropping we're going to be dropping bombs. Like, that is the idea of big stick diplomacy. Like, you kids
carry a big stick.
Yeah, you kids play, but as soon as it gets out of hand, daddy's coming in. Like, that's basically
And we're not coming in with fucking peacekeepers and all that nonsense.
Right.
We are raining fire and brimstone down on you, and if it takes turning the desert into glass, we will do it. But don't push us to that point. We're not. You know what? We're not risking American lives for nothing for corporate interest. We're not risking, all of these little piddly things that we get involved in. Play nice, or when Daddy comes in, he's going to lay waste. He's going to be, I guess not Dad, he's going to be your mom tossing ice water on you and Brendan and saying, there's no oh, come on, stop, oh, come on. No, it's splash you with ice water, you go your separate ways. And I mean, that was his policy, that's what we should do. And we go around the world and we put on a good show, which I'm totally fine with, but we also don't get involved. It's, look at our big warships. Look what we can bring to you if you mess with us. Yeah. And we already have that. I love the idea that, when Turkey, when there was all that unrest in Turkey, that within 48 hours, we had stealth bombers in Germany, and we had men, boots on the ground, ready to go, C-130s, and 40,000 troops in Germany, and stealth bombers and everything else. And we said, listen, we're not going to use them. And I think that was Bush, actually, and I hate that I'm defending something that Bush did. But he said, well, we're not going in, but don't make us go in. Look at in 48 hours, we moved 40,000 men and all this material halfway around the world. We are ready. What do you think we can bring to you if we take 5 weeks to get ready to bomb you? We'll put you back in the Stone Age.
Yeah.
And then we didn't have to go in. Then they were like, okay, well, maybe you can fly across our area. Maybe we won't shoot at your stuff anymore because you know that we can do it. That was TR's policy.
Yeah.
Show force without actually using it.
Right. Just put your chest out there. And
that's what we need. More of that stuff.
And less of, let's spend a lot of money actually doing things that shouldn't be done.
Right. Well, and so looking more to the future, because I do want to get your perspective on that, Bill, about presidential outlook for 2016. Who are you looking at?
Well, I like Rand Paul. And I can't think of anyone else, really, that offhand. If Ben Carson ran, I'd take a long, hard look at that. Dr. Carson.
Yeah.
Head of the former head of the
Hopkins.
Oh, you mean Ben Carson here? Okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a Ben Carson who was working at the bank, the Fed, and then he left? He wasn't like the president of the Fed, but he was working for the Fed. I don't think it's the same Ben Carson.
I'm talking about the
Dr. Ben Carson here at Hopkins.
At Hopkins.
Yeah.
And I think he's not at Hopkins anymore, or at least not in the same capacity. I'm not sure he's doing surgery anymore, but...
Now, you'd like him for president? Coming out of left field?
No, I said I would take a good, long, hard look at him.
Okay.
I think he's a very calm and reasoned gentleman, and I think that he knows where the
They'll never win. Never win.
Well,
you know,
you may be right about that, but I think he's written a couple of books, and he has set forth his principles, which aren't, I don't think, that much different from the principles of the Tea Party. I think that he believes that we should, the big government is killing us. We need smaller government.
I think if Ben Carson runs a race that the type of race that I imagine he would run if he could do everything, he would be a very interesting candidate out there.
He would.
Because there's too many people who are we talk so much about like the political spin. You know, like we're already getting it from Hillary's book tour.
Oh yeah.
Like anytime she says anything, it's already a prepackaged, like 15 people got together and said what she's gonna say.
Well, that's because they did.
Kind of moment.
Everything she says is a soundbite that was pre-approved by her people.
Right.
So.
But it seems to me like whenever Ben Carson talks, it's pretty much him just being very smart and talking.
Yeah.
Which
he's a smart guy.
He's a very smart guy. Yeah. But you know, it that's one of those. It could do you tremendous good, because you're going to sound like the only real person up there, or you could get in a lot of trouble by just saying something without like,
well, no, because I think
working it out.
There's
and then
no trouble he could get into by what he's saying. It's that someone at a news source will take 15 seconds of what he said, use it out of context.
It's too.
Well, that's what they do.
Yeah. That's the Herman Cain's campaign. Regardless of what you think about Herman Cain, ended in one. Yeah. Like that was done.
You're talking about Howard Dean.
Sorry, what did I say?
No, Herman Cain though.
Herman Cain did have one of those. What was he kept saying the same thing over and over again, and everyone made fun of him.
Well, no, I think Herman Cain lost his race because they found out he had an affair with someone. I think his was the affair. Howard Dean was the I can't hear myself speaking and I'm going to make a crazy noise.
Howard Dean. Sorry,
New Hampshire.
Yeah, when he
lost
when he was the crazy person who was like, we're going to go to Iowa, we're going to go to like he running through the states.
He won in New Hampshire, and then they had apparently his monitor wasn't working, so he couldn't hear himself. So that's when he had to shout like, "We're going to go on to Iowa, we're going to go on," and he was just sounded like a crazy person because he couldn't hear himself talking.
Oh, I thought that's funny. My memory was that he lost, and he was doing this to booster the spirit of his. No, he
came out of nowhere, and he went from third place in the polling in New Hampshire to winning. Yeah. And then so he was like, "Well, everyone had counted him out, but now let's go on and win again in Iowa." Right. Yeah, okay. And sounded like a crazy person. And then of course we put him as the head of the DNC.
He is a crazy person.
Yeah, no, I agree. But no, Herman Cain was the Republican.
Yeah. But
Herman
Cain had something like that. Somebody approved. Like, okay, so one thing I saw a lot of when I was reading through, like, people putting together answers to questionnaires is that everyone has, like, a name for a plan.
Yeah.
Like, particularly Brown and Gansler. Like, every single question they had answered had, like, well, that's going to be taken care of when you read the 19-point plan I have that I call the Center of America plan, or, like, everything has a name.
Note to candidates, don't call it the final solution. That has
that has been taken.
Yeah.
I think that one's on the books already.
Yeah, can't use the fair deal, can't use the square deal, can't use the new deal, can't use the final solution.
How about the old deal?
What's that?
How about the old deal?
Well, I don't want to go back to the old deal either, because you use that and people start looking at two.
Oh, I know. I was just kidding.
I like the idea of the old deal. Let's go back to the way things were.
Yeah.
But then it's all about, you got to worry about spin. That's where you're in the room with 10 people who think just like you, and they're like, you know what? That is a great idea. Let's go with the old deal. And then you put it out there the first time you say it, you got Rachel Maddow or somebody else on there like, the old deal, huh? And there's a picture behind her of like, colored bathroom, white bathroom signs,
right?
And you're like, oh, we didn't even think about that.
Or the Daily Show. I mean, I feel like the Daily Show and Colbert and John Oliver almost hurt candidates more than the actual news does.
I don't think. But that's the thing is, if you are, if they like you, they wouldn't.
Right.
But they would if they don't like you. I mean, Howard Dean's a perfect example. Jon Stewart didn't jump on Howard Dean until it was already a story because he liked Howard Dean. It had been very pro Howard Dean before that.
Yeah.
And when it got to the point that he couldn't ignore it anymore, that's when he jumped on the bandwagon.
Right.
But the damage was already done you won't see him doing damage. Now, John Oliver's a wild card because I feel like he's just going to say whatever he wants.
Yeah.
He doesn't care how it impacts your campaign or not. So.
Yeah, John Oliver has shown a propensity to just say whatever he feels, basically, and that might turn things interesting.
And Colbert won't now because
he's
he's
going to be on CBS. So
yeah, so you won't hear anything.
He doesn't want to upset the blue hairs. But
right.
Did you have a pick for president? I know it's early out.
Anybody but who's running. I forget who said it, but they were like, if you want the job as president, I feel like it's Bill Burr. Now that I'm thinking about Adam Carolla, maybe. If you want the job for president, I already don't want to vote for you. And it's weird for me to say that because I've said my whole life that I want to be president. And
right.
But when I hear somebody say, I don't want the job, I know you want the job.
Yeah.
So I'm already against you. I can tell you who I don't want to vote for. I don't want to vote for Hillary. I don't want to vote for O'Malley because God. He's going to run. No, he's running. His next 2 years are set up to
run. 5 cents.
I think he might, but that's almost as bad, if not worse, than Hillary.
Yeah, but Hillary's going to lose to O'Malley. That's what I can tell you.
You gotta be kidding.
Yeah, no. If he jumps in the race, she'll lose to him.
Really?
Nah, because he is the party's golden boy now, and Hillary is past her prime.
People don't even know who O'Malley is. That's
they
the problem.
should watch The Wire, then they can.
Tommy Garcetti for president of the United States.
More people know O'Malley than you think know O'Malley, and they may not know who he is.
No, but I mean, like nobody knows. Like we know O'Malley.
Right.
We know what he's done. We know his responsibility.
He is the party's golden boy. You know how much time
how quickly does a presidential campaign get torpedoed once rain tax becomes the number one talking point on every single.
Mike Miller. That wasn't O'Malley. He supported it, but it was Mike Miller's plan.
Doesn't matter. This is not how. I'm surprised that nobody knows how news goes. Once your name gets associated with something like O'Malley and rain tax, and that sort of thing goes national, then people forget who the.
Let me tell you how
little person.
There are 100 other reasons why you wouldn't win.
Oh, I know, but that one's pretty much the most ridiculous thing that's ever been associated with a candidate.
Here's what's going to happen. In January, he's going to step down as governor. He's going to say, I want to spend more time with my family, and it's all great. Right around June is when Obama's going to post him up for something. My guess is the head of education, because he's made education such a big deal in Maryland, but that's not something that gets you to the presidency. So what we're going to see is something big. Defense is obviously not him.
No.
State is a possibility. I don't think he has the experience to do it.
Department of State?
Yeah, I don't think Kerry will get rid of it. But he's going to get a secretary or subsecretary level position, and then that will put him in the running for president in 2016. He's going to put his hat in the race. It's going to be. He's going to be there.
God.
I can tell you.
Now,
I've been calling it since 2012. When he spoke after the 2012 convention, I said, there you go. That's O'Malley and the party saying.
Wait, did anybody actually listen to anything he said at that convention? Because I fell asleep about 12 seconds.
Well, he got panned.
That was one of the worst.
Like an idiot, but I'm telling you, because the Democrats have they have their formula now.
Oh, yeah.
Debut you, and then you run in the next race. It worked for Kerry, but he didn't get elected. They did the same thing for Obama. It's going to continue on doing the same thing. He was the featured speaker. They wanted they wanted a national audience to see him. He looked like an idiot, but now his name is out there. Obama will put him in something in the administration. He'll keep his name in the news for the next 2 years, and he'll jump into the race in January of 2015.
I disagree. I disagree. Here's the thing.
Well, you may very well be right, Rob. I mean, it does sound like the pattern
but
that they do, and he is as far left as they come, but that's what the Democrats seem to be liking nowadays.
Now, who would I vote for? I'm with your dad, Rand Paul. If Rand Paul runs, I don't agree with everything he does, but I think there'll be a new mantra in Washington with Rand Paul as a president. Now, I don't think he has a chance of winning, but I hope that he pulls 5%. This is how broken our system is.
Mm-hmm.
I am an educated voter, and I'm pulling for somebody to just get 5% nationally, because that gets you federal matching funds, and that sets you up to have something down the road. That's what I hope for.
I'm so torn with everybody who's running, or whose name is being associated with running for president in 2016. I mean, Rand Paul's an interesting one because I feel like he's not a bad guy. not nearly as bad as other people in the race. I should put it that way.
Yeah, there you go.
I feel like there's... it's one of those, I don't know what to think anymore, because I feel like everybody's name is dirtied with some sort of, corporate interest or this, that, or the other, but I feel like Rand Paul at least has more of a conscience about it.
And here's the thing, I don't think that he's dirtied by the corporations. He doesn't take that... If he takes money, he hides it really well.
Yeah.
I mean, I still believe, and again, I'm quote Bill Burr, I think for the second time, that politicians should have to do what NASCAR does. You should have to put patches on your suit that show where you get money
Where you got your money from.
That's good.
If you're up there talking about how this bill is great for healthcare, I want to see the Pfizer on one side of your jacket and then Monsanto on the other one.
Yeah.
Let me know that you're taking money.
And if Pfizer gave you 50% of your campaign money, it should be really big on that.
You got Pfizer's got the big spot on the back because they gave you half of your money. Yeah. And I think that you would stop taking them so seriously. When somebody gets up there and rails against something, and they have Monsanto right there on their chest, you're
people who are
that's a wonderful idea. I
like
that.
Doing finance reform, right?
Who's Bill Burr? I don't know.
He's a comedian.
Yeah. Oh, he's a comedian.
Yeah, he did the whole thing about how some guy was up. It was actually Monsanto. He was up there ranting against how this is going to break down business and not going to be able to make any money. And then then he was like, but if you look into it. Half of his campaign was paid for by Monsanto. And shouldn't he have to say that before he's like, okay, so take what I say with a grain of salt, because, by the way, they paid for half of my campaign in one way or another.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be nice if, on NASCAR, you had to wear the patch that showed where your money came from?
Yeah.
So.
I think they should do that for people who are, elected for position. What was the one that was just the FCC chair?
Oh, God.
Who was a lobbyist for the cable company for the last 15 years. They should have to when they introduce him,
not the only
one. Every part of his name should be. Oh yeah, I mean everybody who's ever been in the EPA is part of Monsanto.
Yeah,
and stuff like that. But
FDA and the SEC used to be Stearns Bears chairman.
Yeah.
Right before they went off the deep end, he bailed out, got his golden parachute. Now he's running the bureau that is supposed to enforce them. But it's everything.
Right.
Everything is run by people from the industry, and it's ridiculous. And talk about Rand Paul, as much as I hate him, that won't happen. He will say, wait. 15 years ago, you used to work for Verizon? All right, well, I can put you some places, but I can't put you at the FCC because I don't want you to have that kind of influence.
Right.
Maybe you have none. But I don't want to have that.
See, but I feel like the industry is so strong, the industrial governmental side is so strong that the Republicans won't even allow Rand Paul to do that. So somebody's going to have to Bigfoot him at some point. If he's going to try if he's going to try and be oh no, I'm not picking that guy to be the FCC chair, and it's just oh really?
Yeah.
You want us to completely ruin your life with this awful story that we'll release to the media?
Okay. So,
about how you poisoned a child or something like that?
Here's the thing. I look at a man based on his values, and maybe I'm off, but when I look at Rand Paul, I see him saying, fine, you don't want that guy, I'm going to offer you another name. But it's not going to be the guy you want me to offer you. It's going to be the guy I want. And we will do this for the next 4 years, and you can say no to everyone. And I'll have no secretaries, and we'll have no judge appointments, because I'm going to take you to the wall. And I'm going to say either give me the guy that I want, or a good reason not to have him, or we'll have nobody. That's it. And hopefully 4 years into that, the American people will be like, what are we doing with our government? I keep sending this guy back to Congress, and he's blocking everything. So that's the hope. I take my mentality with a grain of salt, because I'm getting to that Joker point where I'm just burn the whole thing down.
Well, the government has become so corrupt, and it's been corrupt for a long while. This administration is by far the most corrupt administration in my lifetime, and the most corrupt I've ever read about.
Well, because the Supreme Court, in their infinite wisdom, which, by the way, the Supreme Court is actually starting to get corrupt now, which I have a huge problem with. Yeah. Now,
what makes you say that?
Right after Citizens United was decided, it was announced that 3 of the sitting judges who were in that decision were also given multi-million-dollar speaking tours at corporate events for some of the companies that donated into Citizens United.
Jeez.
So, I mean, now that
you think the listeners know what Citizens United is?
For those who don't, there was a case of I can't even remember. It was like Foster versus Citizens United. Citizens United was a group that took money from a bunch of corporate interests, and they were what do they call them now? PAC. It was a super PAC, I guess.
Yeah.
Where they take a lot of money from a lot of rich people and a lot of corporations, and then they bought ads for or against certain candidates. It's outside. It's what we call gray money in the election cycle.
Because
or soft money.
When you actually run, you can only accept a certain amount of money from individuals.
$4,350 now. So
yeah.
Every person can donate $4,350 to a campaign.
So whenever you see a campaign that has at the end of it where it's like, I'm Cory Baker and I approve this message. Like, that's paid for by people who wrote checks for to that amount. But if you see something like,
Swift Boat Veterans is the big one that people know.
Mm-hmm. Paid for by friends of or like, not even
often,
that. It'll
often the friends is not, because the friends is often the candidate's campaign.
Yeah.
When you see paid for by Swift Boat Veterans for Truth, or paid for by Citizens United against whatever. Yeah. That's the
people for
money.
good government.
People for good government. So Citizens United, what the Supreme Court said,
can we just call Hillary's super PAC like Hill Dog, just so I can.
I think that
Hill Dog.
So Citizens United said the court decision, I think it's Foster versus Citizens United, said that corporations are people because they are juridical people.
Means
they can be sued. And as such, the rule that was set in the 70s, that money is speech, that rule was set in the 70s by the Supreme Court. So you can't limit people's ability to donate to campaigns. You can limit it in ways, but you can't eliminate it completely. Mm-hmm. So now then we have all these cases that come forward, and it culminates in Citizens United, where they say, well, since money is speech and corporations are juridical people, that they can donate as much as they want to the process. Now they can donate outside of the political campaigns. You still are limited to the 43. Mm-hmm. You're limited to the personal amount for corporations in any one campaign, but you can donate money as much as you want to these outside groups. And basically, they left the door open, and they said that Congress has not legislated in this field yet, which is why we feel the ability to set this rule.
Right.
And basically, they called out Congress to say, if you want to stop the super PAC money,
you have to stop.
You have to do it. And of course, all of those congressmen are benefiting from the super PAC, so they're not going to do it.
Right.
And basically, it's said that Walmart is more important than you. Because even if you had the money to donate $4,350 to every campaign that you could possibly donate, they're going to donate
$43 billion
to the super PAC. And then even though your candidate can buy the equal time to the other candidate, this super PAC is buying time, by the way, at the same reduced rate that the candidates can buy it, which is ridiculous as well. But so it basically has meant that our system is entirely corrupted by money. And the most upsetting part to me was that after, which is the important thing, I think, to the justices, after Citizens United came out, three of the sitting justices were given multi-million-dollar speaking deals at some of these corporate events that they just happened to donate to the group that is Citizens United, who was funding their legal campaign. So for the majority of the history of the Supreme Court, especially, his name escapes me now, starts with an R, the last Supreme Court justice before the one we had.
Rehnquist?
Rehnquist. The Rehnquist court would not have taken that shit. He would have nominated his own justices for removal by Congress for taking that sort of deal in and out. He had a very pure court, and I wish that we had some upstanding men like him to to be on the Supreme Court now. But instead, what we have is people who will take money, and we certainly can't say that they took money for the decision.
Right.
They did benefit from the same groups.
What about the Obamacare decision?
Well, and I think that the Obamacare decision was probably the correct one. Because you know what, Roberts, two of the conservative justices voted in the majority, and they said that it's not a tax as long as it's not deemed to be a tax. There's case law that supports that, and I think it's another cop out. It's a cop out by the court to say.
So you don't think there might have been some financial benefit to somebody for?
What I'll say, there might have been. And if there was, then I will certainly change my opinion on it. But I haven't seen it yet. Mm-hmm. And as somebody who's going to be paying that tax for probably the next 10 years, I don't.
God, hope not.
I don't agree with it, but I certainly, when I read the brief and I read the decision, I can see where they came up with it. When I read the Citizens United decision, there is still that part of me that says, okay, I can read in the brief where they're citing these cases, and I understand how they got there. I also understand how the Supreme Court works, which is they figure out what our decision is going to be. Now find me the case law that allows me to get to that decision. And I'm still okay with that, except for the fact that they personally benefited after the fact. And that just, everything wrong inside of me just says that you shouldn't be on the court if you're going to make that kind of decision. So, and, in the future, if it turns out that a couple of the justices benefited some personal way by the Obamacare decision, I will then look back on that and say the same thing.
I wasn't suggesting that they were. It's just that when you mentioned the Citizens United case, I would think the Obamacare decision had billions of dollars resting on it, and big companies that had a lot to gain or lose on that. So I was just wondering if you thought there might be something there or not.
What I'll tell you is this, that liberal campaigns, Democratic campaigns, tend to hide their stuff better. The conservative, the Republican campaigns, or the money, is where you see, you get the decision, and then 4 months later, 3 justices get multi-million-dollar speaking engagements. The Democrats tend to hide their dirt better. I'm certainly not saying that it's out there, because what you've heard from me today is burn the whole system down and or start a third party so that we can have 3 voices. But if it's out there and I hear about it, I will certainly change my opinion on it. And I've called me a flip-flopper. That's how my policy is. If it's something changes, changes my mind. Yeah. I'm totally for that. So let's shift, because we're talking long about this.
Well, we're running super long. So.
Well, here's what I'll say. I think that you're going to do a little more editing this week than you usually do, and that means that if there may be bonus footage that you can hear.
Yeah, possibly.
So there might be some bonuses that you have to go out and find at theanthem.com. But anyway, so the next thing that we wanted to talk about, and we can cover real quick, is the Redskins losing their their copyright protection on the name.
Yes. I will say this, just because it's been my argument the entire time, is that Daniel Snyder bought the Washington Redskins, and when he bought it, he bought not only the football team with the stadium and the concessions and the parking and the players and the ticket sales and the blah, 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 but he bought a brand name. Just like if somebody went out there and spent $100 billion to buy Microsoft, you would be buying it largely because you're buying Microsoft, the name. Now, I feel like if somebody would have just nutted up and written Daniel Snyder a $500 million check for what the valuation of the brand name Redskins was, we would have put all this aside. All this political money that's gone towards, changing the name, if they would have just written a check to Daniel Snyder, it would have been changed by now.
Yeah.
But he's not just going to give up on something that's worth that much money out of the goodness of his heart, even if deep down he probably does feel it's racist too.
Something I've heard is exactly that the Indian tribe should just get together and sit down at a table with Snyder and be like, what's the value?
Right.
How big of a check do we have to write you? And instead of continuing this court battle that's going to cost both of us hundreds of millions, we'll just write you a check for hundreds of millions, and we'll call it even. And you change the name, we'll enter into a contract that says, I'm going to change the name within 3 years. Wait for everything to die down so it doesn't look like he's bowing down to some interest.
Right.
And the other, I guess the other side of that was that people were saying, he actually stands to gain too, because all of that Redskins memorabilia becomes classic, stuff that you can actually win money from. One question I had for you, Bill, is you lived through the Baltimore Colts era when they left in '84, but you didn't become a Redskins fan after that.
Nobody in Baltimore is a Redskins fan.
Well, and I was going to add, because I know people, who their parents, they are Redskins fans because their parents were Redskins fans, but they were Colts fans before that, and they became Redskins fans to have someone to cheer for.
Where are they from?
Eastern Shore. That's why.
Well, that's it. And people in Prince George's County and Montgomery County, if they weren't already a Redskins fan because of their proximity to Washington, would have changed over. Baltimore, on the other hand, for some reason, just really didn't like the Redskins, and I think it had to do with the fact that they're from Washington.
Right.
Well, and they look at them as the Redskins fans as effete snobs. Remember when they had when the Washington didn't have a baseball team, and the Washington people come to Baltimore.
Yeah, well, they used to say the lower boxes, the seats behind home plate, were for the people coming up from Washington to drink their wine and eat their caviar.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, and although that wasn't 100% precisely true, that's the
right
idea that people had about Washington. So the Redskins were never popular. And so, no, I wouldn't switch to anybody. Luckily, we had a Canadian team, which I rooted for, and I think you or Brendan or all of us went to some of their games.
Yeah.
And
Mustangs?
Stallions.
Oh, yeah, Baltimore Stallions, yeah. And, but no, I did not change to the Redskins. I just had no loyalty to them. And I was just still in shock that we lost the Colts. And let me say that if we had gotten the deal that Cleveland got, I would have loved that, because Irsay, the owner at the time, was just an idiot,
cocksucker,
and we weren't going to be doing very well with him at the helm. And I would have loved to have gotten rid of him, let him move to where he wants. But we kept the Colts name. We kept the Colt memorabilia.
The fight song and the history.
And we're only out of the league for a year.
Yeah.
I tell you, if you put that to a vote among the Baltimore citizens at the time, football fans, you'd had 95% voting for that. We'll go a year without. But instead, we were left, I don't know how many years it was before we finally got 16 years? 12?
Yeah, 84 to
96.
84, 96.
96, right, okay. So, but Cleveland, I mean, look what happened with them. I mean, they got a team. They're back in the league in a year, kept their name, all that stuff.
That's a change in the league, too, though. That is the league itself as a whole changing. Because, Irsay sneaking out in the middle of the night, that probably wouldn't have gone over well with the league in 96 either. Like, Modell was like, here are my demands. I'm public with what I want, not even just to this city, but to everyone.
Well, Irsay was fairly public about what he wanted, but he was also like a horrible drunk and a degenerate. Like it was fairly clear that he wanted a stadium, and then nobody was ready to like move on it right away.
He shopped in secret, though. He went to Phoenix, he went to Indianapolis.
Denied what he was doing.
Yeah. And whereas Modell said, you have a year. When that year went past, he said, okay, now I'm going to shop. And when he came to Baltimore, it was like fanfare. Like the mayor was there and the governor was there, and they were looking at it. And he didn't just come to Baltimore. I think he may have gone to Phoenix, too, actually. But
Phoenix had a team at that point.
So wherever it is that he went, he went there and he did it very publicly. I felt then, which was that, he's forcing Cleveland to give in to his demands. Let me go very publicly elsewhere. See look at Baltimore. Fans are coming out. They really want our team. Doesn't that make you want to come out? And when it didn't, they moved. And maybe they had the mentality that we did. They hated Modell. They wanted Modell out. Yeah. And if they knew they were going to
I saw nothing wrong with Modell whatsoever. He was a great boon to Baltimore. I mean, he gave a lot of money to Baltimore charities.
The whole
the Modell Theater downtown. And but do you remember when the NFL was looking to add a couple expansion teams when they first were ready to do that?
Yeah, and that's my
problem. Schaefer had gone and was really courting the NFL for one of those two expansion teams.
Yeah.
And he was really being led to believe that we'll get one because we were screwed over. You'll get one of them. And then he goes to the final decision, which was this big announcement, and he's there, and then they announce the teams, and by the time they announced the second one, Schaefer was about to cry. I swear to God, I've never seen a man look so miserable in my life, and they had just, I'm sure they just misled him all the way down the line. I mean, he was positive we were going to get a team.
Well, I mean, just look at it in retrospect, though, I mean, we get the Browns through illicit manners, if you will.
I don't even think it's illicit.
Well, I mean, that's why I'm doing that quote unquote.
Yeah, not expansion.
Like we didn't get an expansion team, but we sell out every single game at the bank. Like every game's a sellout. Been doing that for a solid 10 years or something like that. And beyond that, we have a great fan base. We put a competitive team on the field. Where's Jacksonville been? And they have the blackout tarps up in the upper deck of the Jaguar Stadium because they don't sell enough seats.
That's the change.
And people in Florida don't give a shit about sports.
That's the change we saw in the NFL. The change we saw in the NFL was when it got to, and there was expansion in '98. I
mean, I bet the NFL is really kicking themselves that they didn't expand to Baltimore because Jacksonville is an embarrassment to the NFL.
And Jacksonville had happened early '90s, right? Was that '94? 93, 94?
Something like that, yeah.
So, but I think the NFL, it got to the point where the NFL was saying, we're going to send a team to Baltimore. Jacksonville didn't work out. Carolina was also in that expansion, right? It was two of them.
Yeah, but Carolina has done pretty well for themselves. I feel like
for their market, I suppose.
But that's a huge market that doesn't get respect,
right?
Which I think is why those fans have really it's been a college sports area more than anything.
Baltimore was getting a team at some point, and the question was, do you get Modell? And does Modell want Baltimore? Does Baltimore want Modell? Or do we get the expansion 2 years later? And I think that there had been such a drought of football in Baltimore that we just said, if we can get him here, we want him here. And he seemed like a good owner, despite the fact that how Cleveland may have felt about him after he left. But we got him here and got him, and then Cleveland got the expansion in '98 instead. So. But yeah, I think that most people would have traded and said, we'll give up our say if that means we get
absolutely
next time. But the NFL changed everything; their mentality about shifting teams changed, all of that. But given that, and I don't know how much experience you have with trademark law. Do you have any experience with trademark law? Okay, good. So, what is the impact of the Redskins losing their 6 trademarks?
Well, assuming
it's upheld on appeal.
It's going on appeal, and the decision won't be effective until the trademark court is affirmed. And if they're not affirmed, then it won't go into effect until they might be remanded, which means going back to the trademark court, and it may go on appeal again. But in any event, until there's a final decision on it, the Redskins can still continue to use their name. Now, if they continue to use the name, they can do that.
Yeah, but
I think the legal probably come in and say, no, you can't. But they can. But even if they lose the case, they can continue to use the name, but they won't have exclusive rights to the name of the Redskins. So anybody can go out and sell Redskins memorabilia and not have to pay any royalties to Slider.
Right. And that's why the NFL will come in, because of the joint sharing of profits. They'll come in and say, got to change the name. You got to change the name because we want to have exclusivity.
Well, they're going to bow to the political pressure. Let's face it, they're very sensitive to political pressure. But the issue in this case, as I understand it, there is a provision in the trademark law that you can't, that trademarks that are disparaging to a particular group of people shouldn't be registered. Okay, so they found back in whenever it was, a long time ago, that the Redskins was not a disparaging name, and it was fine to be on the principal register trademark. And this action was brought by I think a couple of Native Americans to petition to strike the trademark, and it's not that the name would be found offensive by most people or a substantial amount of people. It's whether if it would be offensive to a not insignificant portion of the people to whom the name applies. Right. So what that means is, with the Redskins, you're not looking at anything other than Native Americans. And you don't have to say that 51% of the Native Americans. If you find that, I'm pulling numbers out of the sky, but if you found that 26% of Native Americans found it very offensive, then that may be enough to carry the day.
Now, and this is the second time they tried it. 92, they were successful at the appeals court, or they were successful at the trademark office, and then they lost on appeal. Now, my understanding was that on 2 counts. One, that there was no evidence shown at the hearing down below that a substantial number of the native population, or the population that was affected, found it to be negative, which they have now rectified in their new case.
Right.
The second one was that the case was brought by people who had reached the age of majority more than 3 years before, which meant they were on notice about the name at the age of 18, and then they waited too long to file the case. Now, Amanda Blackfoot, who is the one, I think it's Blackfoot, who is leading the charge this time, probably chosen, but she is the chief's daughter.
Oh, yeah, she was chosen.
And at 18 is when she filed the lawsuit, or she filed the complaint with the trade.
Why 18 or within 3 years?
Because they said that from the 2001 decision of the appeals court, what they said was that the person, when they turned 18, is on notice, assumedly, legally speaking, yes, about the name and whether or not they could file a complaint about the name. Because you can't, as a minor, file such a complaint. But because they were more than 3 years from the age of majority, they lost standing to then bring the complaint. And what we found is that these new people, this new group of 5 people from 5 different tribes, they fixed that problem they found 5 people in 5 different tribes who were over 18 but not over 21, and they're the named litigants in the complaint.
Interesting.
And I think the appeals court was really looking for a reason to send it back down. And if they had said only that there wasn't enough evidence that it was impacting the population, it would have been remanded for additional hearings. But because they could find the standing problem, they can say, case dismissed because you lack standing.
Exactly.
So now that they fixed that, my thought process about the appeal is that there is a good chance it's successful. They fixed the 2 problems that the appeals court found the last time. And now the court's either going to have to find something new, another reason to send it down. Most likely it'll be on remand, so there's no dismissing this time. We'll go back and forth between the patent office and the appeals court, the DC appeals court, or the court will uphold it, one way or the other. I mean, that's limited.
I think that it's a reasonable assumption that they will uphold it.
I still think that we're looking way too much in. If you had to rename a team every time you bought one, then it wouldn't be the Redskins still. Like, I can't imagine that Daniel Snyder really thinks this is like a good idea, like deep down in his heart.
Here's what I'll say.
That's
I don't think he likes being pushed around.
If he bought a team,
that is absolutely it.
If he bought a team that was like the greedy Jews, then he'd be like, I'm Jewish. This doesn't offend me. I don't, But if somebody said like, hey, the name means nothing, it's like, well, we're not the greedy Jews anymore. So like,
part of the case law that the litigants were citing is that there was a restaurant called Cooney's Restaurant in the South in the 30s and 40s, and it was purchased by somebody who was purchased by somebody who was purchased by somebody, and then later on someone came and struck the trademark for this exact reason.
For what reason?
Because it was a derogatory racist commentary to black people. Because
okay. It wasn't somebody's name.
No. It was Cooney's Restaurant. It wasn't and the front door was a black face that you walked through.
And when did they get their trademark?
They got their trademark early, like the 20s.
Oh, okay.
So when that happened, the patent office, well, there's nothing wrong with that word.
Right.
Everybody uses that word.
Right.
It's fine.
Yeah.
And I think they had a different definition of what's racist and derogatory at that point, too.
Oh, sure.
It's like, and the rule that came into effect about it offending a significant portion of the population was a rule that was put in place by the patent office after that. Because it used to be, my understanding again is that it used to be offensive to a majority of the population. So if white people are 70% of the population and we don't find it offensive,
exactly.
But then the patent office changed their rule that said we limit it to the population that's affected by the word.
Exactly.
Anyway, so some restaurant, they didn't even want to keep using it, obviously, because by the 70s it had fallen out of use.
Yeah. But
the whole idea that when you lose the patent, you also lose any ability to sell merchandise, not that you would, with that name on it. So anytime that a picture of Cooney's Restaurant
you don't lose the right to sell that merchandise.
Just not exclusively.
Not exclusively.
Well, and
anyone can make that merchandise.
Right. Yeah. It was very popular in a lot of documentaries to show the restaurant, to show like how far have we come, and whatever restaurant chain it is that had that was getting a check every time that somebody used it because they still had the trademark on the name. Now, once they fought the case only for that, to keep some of the money. And that was what the litigants here were using. They were saying, see, look, they went back and said the rules have changed, so even though the Redskins applied in the 70s, whenever it was, they got their trademarks, they applied for them then.
It's way before that. They were in the...
Well, no, because a couple of them were more recent than when the team was organized. It was like the Redskins cheerleaders.
Okay, yeah.
That was in the 80s, whatever it is. That was in the 80s. And so they said that the rules have changed, and what we need to do is apply new rules to the old decision. And they pulled a 1984, which is they said that using the rules that we have today, we're going to say that they never should have been granted a trademark ever. Right. Not that there's something wrong with it now, but that they never should have.
I still maintain that if Daniel Snyder is going to get bullied out of this name, which, debate whether or not he should just give up this name out of the interest of public fairness, but I would just change the name to Washington Football Club. Don't give it like a team nickname, and just trot out the same team with the same uniforms.
But one of the trademarks they hold is the image on the side of the helmet, so then they couldn't make any money from that image.
Well, change it enough that you can,
like
the
that gets
spear.
stricken too?
What's that?
Did the trade symbol get stricken too?
Yeah, every bit of protection that was granted by the trademark office to the team based on that name or imagery was struck. So the 6, I think, were the name Redskins, the name of the cheerleading group, whatever that is, was also struck. The image of the Indian on the side of the helmet, the image of the word Redskins in that slightly cursive
the word mark,
yeah. That image was struck as well. So it was a bunch of stuff that was struck out.
Well, I hope we're not embarking, and I don't necessarily disagree with the Redskins' decision. I don't like the way they went about it, and I don't like how Harry Reid's jumping all over the place on it. But I hope we're not heading down a slippery slope. I mean, he had a property right in Redskins.
Yeah.
I mean, that was property that he owned, and now it's just being taken away from him. We had a similar case with that fellow out in Los Angeles. What was his name? The old guy that owned the
Clippers?
The Clippers.
Oh, Sterling.
I mean, he's old and obviously somewhat senile. And he made his remarks in what he thought was a private conversation. Now, did he say things he shouldn't have said? Sure. But it wasn't said in public. And the guy's old. I mean, you got to give somebody like that, I think, a little bit of a break.
What I think is happening there, and kind of interestingly happening here as well with the Redskins, is that people hated Donald Sterling, and they never had the opportunity to get him out because he kept, like, a $500 million lawsuit would be brought against him because he was being racist to people who owned apartments that he lived in, and he would just buy them out.
Yeah.
So there's no guilty verdict associated with him being a racist, so they can't do anything about it. And this time, I feel like we're just like, all right, we've had it. We can't take it anymore, and you're done.
What I'm saying is,
and maybe there's going to be a part where
I just hope we're not heading towards a slippery slope, where if you hold unpopular opinions, say unpopular words, that boom, they'll take property from you. I mean, that's what happened here.
Yeah.
And, there's a real problem in this country with forfeiture laws.
Oh, yeah.
Agreed.
They'll take anything at a drop of a hat. And
especially
it's your burden to get your property back, to prove that it shouldn't have been taken.
And one thing that I've read in the opposition to in the appeals court is that the court may find that it is a taking under the Fifth Amendment without giving any money or any compensation for it, because the Patent and Trademark Office is a government entity, and they are taking something of value from someone without giving them just compensation.
Well, except that what they're saying is that it has no value because you were never entitled to it.
And what I've read is that that's why they decided that way.
Yeah.
So it's not a taking because you were never entitled to it.
Yeah.
But it may be that the court the appeals court in D.C.
might find it differently.
Yeah, say that what we're going to find is that doesn't apply. They had something of value. We're taking it away. Now we're going to remand it for value. And that means that us, the taxpayers, are going to pay Daniel Snyder whatever the value is worth.
Well, but it's the Washington Court of Appeals, right?
And whether or not they actually do that or not. Yeah. Well, what I'll say is this. I think that if Snyder's lawyers are honest with him, which part of our job is being honest with clients, they'll say, listen, there's a chance we lose this and you lose value. The better thing we do is we sit down at a table with these groups and say, you pay us, we're going to set a value for the name.
Right.
We'll guarantee that we'll change the name under a contract. We're going to let it sit for 3 years so everybody stops talking about it, and then Daniel Snyder gets to look like a nice guy and change the name.
But do they have the money?
Do the Indians have the money?
From their casinos and stuff, you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
they have enough money to fight this case, which is probably costing them hundreds of millions of dollars.
I'm thinking that there are probably a lot of pro bono people working on it.
Probably,
just to get some more liberal creds.
And what I'll say is this: is that we talked about Citizens United earlier. I think that the people who brought it are getting it done a lot on pro bono. I don't think that they're being backed by the tribes. They're being backed by the Association of Tribes, which is not the people who run casinos. We are Association of Native American Tribes, and we think this is wrong. And each of those tribes owns a casino, and none of them are paying money into the group, and the group is not paying for the lawyers. The lawyers are saying, we think this is wrong, and we want to do it. But all of those casinos together have other groups of associations that donate a lot of money to political campaigns, especially in the West. And they will open up new casinos by doing that, by donating
give the money and give me a casino.
And I think that they're I mean, we're looking at like huge conglomerations of money. Like
O'Malley made a lot of money that way.
Oh, there you go. No, I think that if Snyder sat down and threw out a number, and it could probably be an insanely big number, or a percentage. Like, you guys give us 15% of your corporate profits for the next 15 years, and we'll change the name in 5. That they would agree to do that. I mean,
I think that's a good thought.
And whether or not if Snyder's lawyers are telling him, don't worry about it, we beat this before, we're going to beat it again.
I don't think they'd ever say that.
Well, I would hope that they wouldn't say that. Yeah. But his attitude and the attitude of his organization, I have concerns that the lawyers are not being 100% honest with them about what the outcome is.
He does make a lot of boneheaded decisions.
But I'm telling you, I don't know if you've had clients yet who you can tell them things, and you'll come up with two things. One, they won't listen to you. I mean, if they're really opinionated, they won't listen to you. Or number 2, they will let you know that they don't want you to handle it anymore because you're not.
Yeah, and I've had a couple who left. Not very many, but I had a couple.
Yeah.
The other ones I call the Thelma and Louise cleanse, because I'm like, listen, this is what you're doing. You're driving off the cliff and just hoping that there's a net down there.
Yeah.
I'm telling you there's not, and we're going to lose. I don't care. Let's take it off the cliff. All right, well, you're paying me, so that's fine. We can do that.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that that's what the situation is. And if there's any logic in the case, he's about to lose something probably and not get any money for it, or you can strike a deal with these people. And
that makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. So maybe one of us should start working for Daniel Snyder and just say, hey, listen, I got a great idea. Let's sit down at the table, we'll set a value, and we'll do a contract instead. But,
well, he can certainly handle your fee, I'm sure.
About a week after you send that letter to Snyder, you'll be getting a complaint from the D.C. Bar Association.
Well, I'm not in the D.C. bar, so I don't even all right, so
Bar.
I do want to hit one thing before we close out here, and that is just the favorite president for all people sitting here. I'm going to start on the far right.
Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan is my favorite.
Of all 44, Ronald Reagan?
Yeah, Ronald Reagan.
Go ahead.
TR. Teddy Roosevelt.
Okay. And can I want to just touch on, what is the justification? Why? Because that just blew my mind. Ronald Reagan's your favorite. Why is Ronald Reagan your favorite president?
Well, I think he had good principles. I thought he was very funny, and I know that's not a judge for a way to judge a president, but I like a president who's funny. I like he had a great wit, and I thought his foreign policy was solid. The Iron Curtain came down, the Cold War ended, and his economic principles were fine. We had good years when Reagan was president. So, I can't say much about presidents before Kennedy, because I really didn't know that much about what was going on back then. I mean, I can look back and say, hey, Eisenhower was valuable for a couple of different reasons. He warned them about the military-industrial complex, and he knew all about it. And he opened his mouth about it, which wasn't the thing that was going to make him most popularity among his colleagues. And I can go back in history and think of, but there's so much I don't know about that. I can only go on modern times.
Different times too. I mean,
yeah.
If Abraham Lincoln was a politician today, he'd probably be way different than the Lincoln that we all know and love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's right.
All right, so you said TR.
Yeah.
Any justification for the TR?
I just like the swagger. I think Teddy Roosevelt. You
like the cut of his jib.
I like the cut of his jib. He made a lot of good decisions, and I feel like more than anything, he was the last. He was the type of president I liked. The type of person who was just going to say what he felt, and he wasn't going to be, steamrolled, or nobody was gonna, he knew what he wanted, and you knew where you stood with TR. I feel like nobody, with so many snake oil salesmen these days, you don't know where you stand anymore. If you're really, you can look a politician in the eyes and say, what are you gonna do about my child with whooping cough? And then the politician's gonna say, I care very deeply about whooping cough. It's one of the 7 platforms of my healthcare reform policy. Right. And then you're like, oh my God, thank God somebody actually cares about me. And then, the politician gets to office, and it's death to every child with whooping cough.
Right. Let me going back to Reagan for a second, and something that Rob said. Reagan was the type of guy that would carry the big stick. I mean, nobody messed with Reagan in foreign policy, and he didn't really have to start any wars or anything like that. They knew that if they messed with them, then he would just unload holy hell on them.
Scared of the bomb. The one guy we thought might actually use the bomb.
That's right.
If he was drawn.
That's right. And I don't think he would. And no more than anyone else. No. But I think he really was tough, and people respected that.
And we'd fought the Soviet Union for 50, 60 years at that point. And he found out the way that you beat the Soviet Union, and that's you spend them into oblivion.
Right.
You make them keep up with us. Now, deficit spending aside, because I'm not big on deficits, and he certainly increased the deficits a lot, but it worked. And maybe 10 years from now, I would be saying something else, because I'd be like, oh, well, we spent ourselves into oblivion, and it didn't beat them. But it did. We shut
beat them then. Yeah. We're letting them back in the game now.
All right, so were you done on Teddy? I don't want to cut you off.
No, I'm all done.
Okay, so as far as mine, I may have had a little more educational study about this, being my political science background. But I look at a lot of presidents. Jefferson is up there as one of my favorites.
Yeah, Jefferson. Mm-hmm.
Because he is a president who just actively said, if you don't like the government and you can't change it at the ballot box, well, the government is meant for every 20 years the boys from the country to come in, overthrow us city folk, and toss us out, and that we shouldn't have career politicians. You should come in for
That's
a while.
That's right. Yeah.
And I like that about him. But when it comes down to modern presidents, which I think is what we were talking about, FDR, the other Roosevelt, is my favorite. I know you hate that's probably hate it. But when you talk about beating another evil empire, it's a president who dealt with the worst. On all fronts, the worst economy that he could possibly have walked into, and the worst.
But one argument against FDR. Hold on a second. One argument against FDR. If the two presidents had been switched, if Hoover was president when FDR was, and FDR was president when Hoover was, then that still would have happened.
Maybe.
The Great Depression would have happened under FDR, and then everybody would have been clamoring for somebody who was conservative and knew what he was talking about, like Hoover. Mm-hmm. Hoover just got the bad shake.
No, he did.
Then FDR came along, and it sort of corrected itself to a degree. But he did step in a lot, which
Well, that's what I was going to say.
It had long-lasting implications beyond what he expected.
I don't think Roosevelt ended the Depression. The Depression was ending on its own.
And I will agree with that, but what I will say is I look at what he got done. The idea, Hoover was a small government, we shouldn't spend money kind of president, and what I think FDR and his people embraced was that the Depression was going to end on its own, but they used it as a justification to do a lot of good things. The public works programs. I mean, the infrastructure we have today is in large part.
I think Eisenhower had more to do with the infrastructure, just like the highway system.
The Blue Ribbon Highway System was based on what they started during the Depression, which was we build highways to connect places. Now, FDR took that and applied the German idea, which was the Autobahn that connected everyone everywhere. But the major road building project, the first one ever, was during the Depression under FDR.
Yeah.
Building dams and bringing electricity. My dad, in 1937, when he was born, where he was born, they did not have indoor plumbing, they did not have electricity, and the works, public works, it's DWP, whatever it was, the whole
Department of
spending money in their rural areas. Tennessee got like all of their electricity.
The TVA,
Yeah, so they brought electricity to my dad's house in 1940 something. Based on the fact that all of these public works projects had started. And they dammed up a river, and it was a hydroelectric, and it brought electric to them. So, I mean, like, when you look at all of that, and then on top of it, and again, large part not his doing, but the defeating Nazism in Europe and taking a stand against something. The last war that I can look to and say, we fought a war for a damn good reason, and it wasn't gray, it was black and white, and we did what we had to do. And I know he didn't order it, but he did approve the Manhattan Project, and he said we might need this kind of thing, despite how horrible it is. We might need it in the future. And I'd like to think that had he not died, that he, much like Truman, would have dropped the bomb and said, we need to save American lives. We're going to do it. He was a guy, and on top of that, great leader, did all of these great things, sat down once a week and recorded a radio broadcast that got sent out to every American home, where he said, I am this guy and I make these big decisions, but I also relate to you on a very...
And he'd be podcasting if he was the president today.
I would imagine that he would send out his little message. And you know what? Times were horrible, and what we needed was a big guy to make good, big decisions, but to relate to us on a personal level and just say, I love you, and here I am, and I'm here for better or worse. So, all right, so we've gone super long.
Yeah.
Again, this week, as per usual, and my computer died, so I don't even know what we're going to talk. Next week, we're talking about
the World Cup.
FIFA.
Yay! Go USA! I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win.
And we get these every 4-year soccer fans, like some people here.
I like soccer.
Yeah, well,
I played soccer.
You go out to a lot of MLS games?
No, because fuck DC.
Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, so
it's like he's new to this whole fucking DC.
I'm a little worried by how much I agreed with Rob, or he agreed with me today. I figured we might break into fisticuffs before this was over.
Next time, it just so happens that the news was pretty even-handed, I believe. But maybe next time we'll come up with something really good.
We'll bring you back for some social issues.
We'll do tax reform next time. We'll really see.
Well, I mean,
the numbers jump.
Graduated flat tax system. I'm all about that. So
yeah.
See, look.
God, come on!
Here's the thing: is I have that charm and that persona. I'm just drawing him in.
Come on.
That's I've believed that for a long time. Simplify the tax code.
Yeah.
And just have maybe 2 tax rates or maybe 3. But I want them low.
Oh, see, I disagree with that. I'm the fisticuffs. Do you want? I don't even know if you do social media. You don't do social media at all, do you? You're on Facebook. I feel like we're Facebook friends, maybe.
Yeah, but I the last time I went to Facebook a couple of weeks ago because Brendan posted some pictures there, and I went there to look at it. But if I go on Facebook, twice a year, that's a lot.
Well, do you want to promote your anything?
No.
Firm or anything like that?
No, I don't. I have nothing to promote.
Sure.
See, I'm retired from the practice of law.
Once you get 4 decades in, then you don't need any Right now, Rob's handing his card to everybody who gets...
I do.
Well, that's good.
He's like an ambulance chaser.
That's good.
All right, so you want to hit your stuff?
Yeah, otheanthem.com, @otheanthem, otheanthem on Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, Twitter, the whole lot. And the phone number, 443-219-7595.
What was that?
443-219-7595.
And as always, you can find me at Robert N. Cheek on all your social networking, except for Facebook, which is at Rob Cheek Esquire. That's ESQ. But Anyway, so next week we're talking about FIFA. Don't forget about our theme song contest. It's still on. You have 4 weeks to respond, so we need to get those entries in. You're sending those entries to Cory
at otheanthem.com.
ESQ period?
No period. Just
okay,
Rob
ESQ.
Cheek, ESQ. That's it. So thank you all for listening once again.
For Cory.
For Cory, this is Rob. You are listening to The Anthem podcast, part of the The Anthem digital
thanks,
network.
Dad, for coming in.
Well, you're very welcome. I enjoyed myself.
We have to have you back in a couple weeks. We'll do something else.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Maybe something funny.
Oh, we could definitely do that.
So have a good week, everybody. Thank you for listening.